This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
And here we are again, on around Kansas. So, anyway, Kansas actually has several railroads running through it, or did at one time. And so there are a lot of railroaders that still live in Kansas. My dad worked for the railroad for 45 years for Santa Fe. So the story I'm going to do is about a former Santa Fe railroad worker who also then worked for BNSF and retired from that. And anyway, started a museum. And it's called the Panhandle Museum. And it has a lot of, especially Santa Fe memorabilia in it. Harvey House, Harvey Girls, lanterns, all kinds of really interesting things. So if you're into railroads, look this up, go see it. It's worth the time, it really is.
This is a Kansas profile from Ron Wilson, director of the Huck Boyd National Institute for Rural Development at Kansas State University. The Santa Fe Railroad. This railroad played a significant role in Kansas history. Today, we'll meet a couple who not only have amassed a remarkable collection of Santa Fe memorabilia, they founded a museum so that others could enjoy this history. Perry and Sherry Wiley are the owners and proprietors of the Panhandle Railroad Museum in Wellington, Kansas. This museum contains a remarkable private collection of railroad memorabilia dating from the early 1900s. Perry, or P.H. Wiley as he is known, is originally from West Virginia. While stationed with the Air Force at McConnell Air Force Base near Wichita, he met and married Sherry, who was born and raised at Wellington. P.H.'s business career took them to Ohio and Kentucky before they came back to Kansas. In 1977, he joined the Santa Fe Railroad, which would later become BNSF. P.H. began as a brakeman and advanced to become an engineer. He was stationed in Wellington, which was a division point on the Santa Fe Railroad. This was a headquarters for the part of the Santa Fe known as the Panhandle Division. Wellington had a Santa Fe office building as well as a roundhouse, depot, and Harvey House for travelers. In 1992, P.H. began collecting railroad souvenirs and storing them in his basement. By the time he retired in 2004, he had amassed a large collection and wanted to share it with others. The Wileys renovated an historic stone building that had been built in 1886 in Wellington. In 2005, they opened the Panhandle Railroad Museum. This museum has an amazing collection of all things Santa Fe. For example, there are plates, pens, signs, caps, lanterns, lunchboxes, staplers, padlocks, towels, pins, caps, uniforms, calendars, and much, much more. One feature attraction is a beautiful polished bell from a Santa Fe steam locomotive that was retired in 1952. Visitors are even allowed to ring the bell, which chimes a strong, pure tone. This bell traveled nearly 1.5 million miles across the Midwest. The Wileys got the bell from a man in the nearby rural community of Milan. Part of the museum is the wall of clocks. Watches and clocks were vital to the safe movement of trains before the signal system was put into place. Switch locks and keys are also vital components. Display cases exhibit a remarkable diversity of railroad souvenirs, even including Santa Fe packaged foods. In the front room of the museum over the fireplace is a 14-foot tall painting of a Santa Fe locomotive. In front of the painting is a velocipede. Now, that's not some type of insect. It is actually a human-powered transport designed like a bicycle to travel on the railroad tracks. The velocipede preceded the use of the handcar. The museum has a large counter and safe from the local Railway Express office. The depot and Harvey House are no longer standing in Wellington, but the copper doors from the Harvey House are on display here. Also on display is an awesome image of the original Wellington Depot and Harvey House, portrayed in wheat straw on black velvet by a couple of Kansas artists. There are caps and uniforms of the conductors, plus a uniform from what had been the Santa Fe Marching Band. At one time, the railroad had its own marching band, which traveled up and down the route for various events. That uniform might have been at the Rose Bowl, Sherry Wiley said. Outside the museum in Sellers Park is an actual steam locomotive donated to the city of Wellington in 1956. The Santa Fe Railroad. Yes, it played an important role in Kansas history. We commend P.H. and Sherry Wiley for making a difference by honoring this history and sharing it with others. It's helping to keep our appreciation of railroad history on track in Kansas. Fort Wallace stood on the frontier in the midst of the Plains Indians Wars on a major stage route and rail line. Beside the 1865 stagecoach station, a modern museum with thousands of artifacts tell that story, like the fossil of a 40-foot plesiosaur is suspended from the ceiling. Located on Highway 40 midway between Hayes and Colorado Springs, the Fort Wallace Museum is as welcome a sight today as the fort itself in the 1860s. Discover the fightingest fort in the West.